Hey everyone, I am again attempting to add a pinned comment on this live. I'm gonna get this one of these days. I don't understand why I got it the first time. It's the weirdest thing. It can't be this hard, right? It must be me. Let's see. Like I have my hands all on the camera and the phone. I don't understand it. Hello, hello. Thank you for joining. We will be starting in the next 3 minutes. Go ahead and put your name and where you're from, all my live viewers, so I can welcome you and invite you to the conversation that we're having today. I am in the process of literally trying to pin this comment. I don't know what it is. Why is it so hard for me to pin this comment? I don't know. So who are you that's watching me right now? Tell me where you're from. What's your name? Let's get into it. It's Friday night. Anybody have some beautiful, fun plans? I know it's kind of like, I'm in Mountain Standard Time, so it's midnight on the East Coast. But 10 o'clock here, so obviously it's 2 hours ahead of us, and obviously Central Time is 11. I asked you guys yesterday about what time you think would be a good time for the live, and I got responses about doing it possibly at 9, so an hour earlier. Hello, hello, thank you for joining. Please put your name and where you're from so I can welcome you into the live. I'm currently trying to pin this comment. Now, when I did the research, it said to hold on to the comment. I have no idea. Why is Facebook treating me like this? What did I do to you, Facebook? What's up? I don't know what's going on, child. But I know everybody has Friday planned, so it's not going to be a long live tonight. We're going to finish the conversation from yesterday because we got interrupted. If you haven't watched the live from yesterday, please go ahead and watch it after the live that we're doing today so you can get caught up, because there's going to be some things that I'm going to start from and go into what we talked about yesterday. All right. Got some smooth jazz playing. I told you guys that I love smooth jazz. I think it's just perfect for the evening sessions, the evening talk show. Remember, it probably still happens when you put on the radio and they're like, we're going to smooth it out. It's smooth jazz. Like at a certain time of night, like you play the smooth jazz on radio. So that's kind of the vibe that we have going on right now, and it's totally cool. All right. So it is 10 o'clock. Yay! It is your favorite time of the night with your girl, Coach Yema. This is the Good Sex Talk Show with me, Coach Yema. And what I am all about is closing the gap between your spirituality and your sexuality, because they are two sides of the very same coin. You cannot know God apart from your sexuality. You cannot dissociate your sexual self from your spiritual self and expect to know God in that place. It's not possible. Okay? So I'm also the author of the book of the same title, Good Sex, as well. Single women, if you haven't picked up your copy, please go ahead and do so. It is a single woman's guide to supernatural sexual wholeness. I was endorsed by a very popular doctor in the area of sexuality and sexual dysfunction by the name of Doug Weiss. And what he wrote on this book was, this book opens doors, exposes lies, and walks you through to the promised land of a God-given sexuality. Hey Shaq, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. So we're gonna get into the topic. Before I do that, let's talk about our rules of engagement. If you would like to join me live on the call, there is I keep saying call. I don't know why I keep saying call. There is a green button at the bottom of the screen. You can hit that and we can have a live chat together about the topic we're speaking on. Also, go ahead and like the video. Thank you for the hearts, Shaq. Like the video, comment, please share. There are people on your friend list that need to hear this and be a part of the conversation. So please do that for me. I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining. So the topic tonight is a continuance of what we talked about yesterday, which was the question of when is the right age to start speaking about sex, right? And we talked about yesterday that actually that right age is when your child, your kid, your beautiful bundle of joy is able to start having conversations with you where they understand, where you can start speaking to them about their body parts. And so it's not like someone said yesterday they were told like their vagina was like a tinker or a peach. We want to use the words vagina. We want to use the word penis. And why we said that was necessary was because if something were to happen to your child and they're trying to explain to the adult that may be guarding them at the time, they'll get frustrated in the conversation of trying to say somebody touched my tinker or my tinker's hurting or whatever that is. As a Liberian beautiful woman, my mom told me that it was like a nunuge, and so I don't know, but you want to use the terms vagina, you want to use the terms penis to refer to the body parts of your kid, and that starts at the age around 3, 4, 5, before school age. And we were talking about how generally right now in society there is a modernization of sexual education, sex ed as we like to say it. And so what's happening is that they saw previously that the government, especially in the US, has spent all this money in promoting and funding abstinence-only sex education. And the studies found that it actually wasn't working, that kids were actually getting more STIs, they were getting pregnant at an earlier age. And I posted that picture on my news feed on the public page that talked about, hey Jeanette, thank you so much for joining. I posted that picture that talked about that showed you the area of the U.S., which is, we normally consider that the Bible Belt. The Bible Belt of the U.S. was teaching abstinence only, and then there was another picture that showed you the highest rates of teen pregnancies in the U.S., and it's happening in the same area. So what they realized through doing the research and studies and all of that was that abstinence only teaching does not work, and what they're trying to do right now, they're going to stress abstinence only, but they're going to be teaching delayed sexual activity. And they want to start in kindergarten, start to teach kids that sexuality is part of your human development, and it's going to be age appropriate teaching, so that like at the age of 5, which is like the conservative Christian community, or just conservatives who do not want this education in their schools, are concerned that at the age of 5, which is what they say, like they're going to be teaching my kids all this stuff. Like at the age of 5, they're going to be teaching kids sex acts, like anal sex, oral sex, mutual masturbation, same-sex activities, and all of those different things. And that's not actually what's happening. I know I am in the state of Colorado, and the HB 1032, I believe, is the bill that was getting passed through. And I went and read the bill. And the purpose of the bill and the premise and the impetus of why they wanted to roll this bill out was the number one reason was to reduce bullying when it comes to kids who are identifying as either gay, lesbian, bisexual, transsexual, transgender. Transsexual is an old term. Transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, all of the different things that they didn't want kids being bullied into the point of where they were committing suicide, because the rise of children committing suicide because of being bullied in school is skyrocketing, right? And so in order to address the issue, the school and education system felt like they should start educating kids about what like other people are. And what we mentioned yesterday, like back in the day, people were like, oh, I'm going to talk to my kids that, you know, whatever race you are, what color of your skin, whatever the color is, it's okay. Everyone's the same. And now the conversation is having to transition into where like no matter what your sexual attraction is, or no matter what your gender expression is, or who you feel like, you may have been born a boy, you feel like you're a girl, and all these different things. And it is completely divorced from what your beliefs are around those things. It's more about acceptance. Like there are different people in the world, right? You're gonna have friends who have two mommies, or you're gonna have friends who have two daddies, and it's not a reason to judge or to bully them. We all know kids can be very, very cruel. I remember I was very tomboyish in school. Like I dressed like in high school, and I dressed like very baggy clothes. I wasn't like the feminine expressing girl. And I remember there were like a group of girls behind me, and it was my first time hearing it. And they were like, oh, she's gay. And I didn't know what that meant, but like just the way I was presenting myself, right? I was just very tomboyish. I mean, I hung out with my dad all the time. I was mowing the lawn, fixing the garage, and doing all these different things. And that was just who I was at the time, and still am to this day, honestly. Like I rather get some tools together and fix something than get in the kitchen and cook. That is just who I am. But at that time in school with kids who don't understand that, it can be very harmful to have these ideas and ideals and identities placed on you when you don't know what that really is. And so kids have been killing themselves. Like it's not a light subject that we're talking about. It's not like, oh, kids can be bad and they can be really mean. No, like children are like literally committing suicide because of this. And so the answer of the education system, specifically public school, is that let's start educating them, because if we can educate them, it will expose them to different ways that people can be, and hopefully it will reduce the level of bullying that is happening, that's taking kids to the point of where they're committing suicide, right? And so that's the premise of it. The people who are against it are really concerned because they don't want their kids being taught that there are same-sex attracted people in the world, or kids, because they don't want for it to come across like it's normal to be same-sex attracted, or it's normal to have a different gender identity from the sex that you were born with, right? And so in California specifically, they are allowing parents to opt out of the sexual acts of a conversation, but not out of the conversation that happens around gender identity, sexual orientation, and sexual fluidity. So that's an issue. Now, I'm not even sure, like personally for me, if I totally agree with that. A parent should have complete autonomy on what they want to expose their children to, right? And if I don't want my child to be exposed to that at that time, it should be my right as a parent to opt out of that, right? And so they're not giving their kids that option right now. Not the kids, but parents. Another thing that the California law is introducing that is happening in other states and really other countries, because Canada is taking this on as well. They don't want, they're forcing parents and kids to have the conversation about sexuality and about sex, because parents are ashamed. They're like, I don't know how to talk about this. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't want to like be the person that's talking to my kids about sex. But if you're not the person talking to your kids about sex, no matter how old they are, a lot of my clients that I talk to, I coach moms who have teenage daughters. The clients that I speak with, they're thinking, oh, she's 16, she's 17, or she's 19, and she's already heard about this, and I don't need to say anything more about it. There is a foundation about sexuality. There is a foundation about identity in sexuality and how you reconcile that with who you are in your relationship with God that is needed from home, right? Because I volunteered to go in Colorado. I volunteered with the organization that went into the schools and were a Christian organization, but they couldn't say God. And they were teaching kids on how to navigate relationships and sexuality. And I realized in that process, like, we're talking not to the wrong people, but we're not starting at the root, at the most influential part of this conversation, which would be the parents. So I built a program, a coaching program for moms to help them navigate with their daughters, because I've told you guys before that my focus is on feminine sexuality, right? So that's, girl power, all that goodness and that juiciness, right? So what we left off yesterday, because unfortunately, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining. What we ended up yesterday at was grade 7, because I was taking you through the curriculum of what is being talked about, because a lot of the issues that people have with things really is rooted in ignorance, because you hear this blog article saying this, or this preacher saying this, or this politician saying this, and you don't really have a full understanding of what is actually being taught to your kids. So to run it through really quickly, and again, I have my computer here with me, so I will be looking down. I apologize if you feel like I'm not connecting with you, but I'm with you, okay? And if you want to join the live and have this conversation with me, please hit the green button at the bottom of the screen so we can have a live chat about it. So, and then my replay viewers also, I know you're not joining me live, but if you want to put your comments in, I do go back after the live is over and I do respond to comments. So don't think that because you're not live with me that there's not going to be engagement. There definitely will be, okay? I'm all in, okay? Thank you, Jesus. So in grade 1, they're going to start teaching kids about body parts. So that's your vagina, that's your penis. In grade 3, they're going to be talking about the reproduction system and relationships. Like, this is where babies come from. Daddy plants, like, someone sent me a private message. It was really good of how she's teaching her son on how to navigate this relationship. Like, daddy plants a seed, mommy births the seed, and the baby comes out of mommy's vagina, right? And then we're at the grade 3, which kids are, let's see, so you're like 5 or 6 in first grade. So you're like 7 or 8 in third grade is when they're going to start talking about same-sex relationships. That is where everyone's hung up at. That's where everyone's really upset about it. In grade 4, they're going to start talking about the changes your body's going to go through as you're going through puberty. So that's for boys, having wet dreams. For girls, your period, your breasts growing, your hips growing out. Understanding like your hormones, you're going to start feeling certain ways, right? And so they're going to be introducing this early. They skip grade 5 in this article, but in grade 6, they're going to start talking about masturbation and talking about consent. The important thing, I don't agree with this conversation happening in grade 6 because, like I told you guys yesterday, masturbation happens way earlier. Masturbation, actually, self-pleasing is a better term that I would rather use. Self-pleasing happens in the womb with babies, right? And you can see your kid, for all of you who are parents that are watching right now, your kids are touching themselves, they're humping things, right? And there's no, once shame gets introduced into that area, that's when you lose the power of talking to your kids about consent. So if I can not slap your hand away because you're self-pleasing, I can start to show you that your body belongs to you and that it is yours, right? It is yours to own. So if I start telling you like, oh no, don't do this, and slapping your hand, what I'm communicating to you is that part of your body doesn't belong to you, right? Like, part of your body isn't yours. And so when other people start to have access to it, whether through seeing you naked with their eyes, or touching you with their hands, or penetrating you with their penis, right? And doing all those things, specifically talking about young women, because early on, I've caused you to dissociate yourself, from your body. There's already shame around that. There's already guilt around it. So of course, I'm not going to be able to come to mom or come to dad and say someone's touching me, or someone's violating me, or someone made me feel bad, someone touched my vagina and I don't like it, right? So that's why it's very important not to have the conversation about self-pleasing and consent when you're 12. It has to happen much earlier, right? Because kids are being abused and molested. Like, I was abused under the age of 6 and had no words to have that conversation with the adults in my life about what was happening. You know, I mean, it took a very long time. I was in my 30s before I was able to actually accept what happened and put vocabulary around it, because I wasn't given vocabulary when I was younger, okay? In grade 7, you're like 13, 14, they're going to start talking about sexting, oral sex, and anal sex, and then STI, sexually transmitted infections. So at the age of 13, 14, I believe those conversations are appropriate, because that's when your friends maybe have discovered porn for young men, right? Even girls, because there's this conception that girls do not watch porn. It is a complete myth. There is a large percentage of women who are addicted to porn, and even a larger percentage of women who watch porn. So that age, those things, hey Kato, thank you so much for joining. At that age, 13 or 14, you're being introduced to visual sexuality and visual sexual acts and conversations with your friends, and it was like at that age, like you're in school, you're on a school bus, and kids are like talking to you about like, oh, she don't know how to give head, or I had this girl who gave me head. And for me, at that age, I was very ignorant about those things. So I like you find yourself in that situation when your parents have kept you very close, trying to pretend like you know what's going on. Like, oh yeah, I know what's going on, and I know that, like you're talking, but you're lying because you don't know exactly what's happening. You're just trying to be cool and trying to be like part of the group. But them introducing this conversation at this age, I believe is very appropriate. For them to be talking about masturbation and consent in 6th grade, I do believe it's too late. Like, you need to start that conversation way earlier, because kids are getting abused and sexually harassed and raped way younger. And we talked about yesterday why we don't want to use, was it yesterday? It was earlier this week, where we don't want to use the term molestation. We want to use the term rape, because molestation kind of takes away the violence of what's happening to kids and makes us feel more comfortable with it. And it's not a comfortable situation. Like, we need to be assaulted with what's going on. Like, your senses and your mind needs to be like hit violently that kids are being violated in this way, right? So Shaq says, what do you mean when you say God has planned and designed physical sexual pleasure to be has not been fully understood until now? Thank you for the question, Shaq. I'm not sure I said that, but that's all right. Well, here's the thing. So with that question, design physical pleasure to be has not been fully understood until now. The reason I say that, and it's not so much physical sexuality and physical pleasure, I would like you to explain a little bit about that. Okay, I definitely will, Shaq. Thank you for asking. My point isn't just physical sexuality. The fact that we, especially in the Christian community, believe that in order for us to be super holy, we have to not be sexual, right? And sexuality isn't just genital sexuality. There's social sexuality. And so me being passionate about my friend who may be of the same gender, me being passionate about people, because the definition of sexuality and not sex and the physical act of sex is only a very, I shouldn't say a very small part, but it's only a very minimal part of sexuality. Sex and sexuality, the definition of that is I want to be known intimately and I want to know intimately. And so your sexuality expands beyond what happens in the bedroom or the kitchen or the car or wherever you want to do it, right? It's way beyond that. And so if I want to start speaking about sexuality, I shouldn't have this thought that I'm talking about something that's private because it should happen behind closed doors, or something that has a lot of shame or a lot of guilt around it. I should understand that there is a bigger aspect, there's a bigger part of my human development that is connected to my sexuality, right? Sexuality is part of my human development, about the desire that I have to want to be known and to know people. And so the act of physical sexuality, genital sexuality, the pleasure of that, God gave us, and I write about this in the book as well. It's in the very last chapter. And that last chapter is called The Real Orgasm. So here's the real orgasm. When you come together in a union physically, sexually, right, there's a climax. I want to orgasm, and I'm like focusing on that. And that's part of the reason why porn and all those different things can be very damaging, because we're so focused on the climax. Like, sex is a journey, right? It's a journey of pleasure, of getting to be known and be touched and be experienced. So I'm not having sex only to climax. If that is my idea, then I don't really know what climax is. It's a journey of pleasure. But the real orgasm is spiritually. God gave us sex as a mirror of what a actual relationship with him looks like. The Bible talks about that. I'm not done yet, Shaq. I'm still going, child. You asked the question, I got you. The actual orgasm that happens is a mirror of what God talks about in the scripture when he says, in his presence, there is fullness of joy, an ecstatic joy. So orgasming in the natural, in our bodies, in our physical senses, and spiritually, is an ecstatic joy. But that is a representation of what we can expect, of what the experience is like being in union with Jesus, being like knowing him, right? And being known by him. We are called to walk in a place with the Lord, with Jesus Christ, in a place of continual ecstatic joy in him. Like, we should be so like pumped up all the time, like just excited, right? For the Christians that are watching me, in Galatians 5:22, the Bible talks about the fruit of the Spirit is love, and then the very next thing is joy, right? God wants you to be happy. He wants you to have joy. He doesn't want you walking around with a sour face like, I'm so sad because I'm a Christian, so many things are going wrong. Like, that is not his will. The Bible talks that Jesus was anointed with the oil of joy, right? He had continual joy because he was always in the presence and mindful of the presence of his Father. That's what God has called us to. And the Bible will always talk about how there is a marriage between Jesus and the church, right? What happens in marriage? Sex happens in marriage. What is sex? Me getting into you and you getting into me and me knowing you. So Jesus talks about, like, I'm in you and you're in me. That is like in the natural world, sex. And then when you're in me and I'm in you, there is joy. That is orgasm, right? And so he's given us these representations to give us an illustration of what it's like to be with him. And that's hard for a lot of people to understand. And it's a little jarring for them, for them to think about sexuality and their spirituality, but that is literally what I'm called to help you understand. If you're not able to accept the fact that you're a sexual being, and that you want to be known sexually, whether it's genital sexuality or social sexuality, there is no way that you'll be able to truly tap into your knowing and your passion for Jesus and understanding his passion for you. He's extremely passionate for us. When you have two lovers and there's jealousy and you're like, you get that, right? Like, your partner's jealous for you. Jesus is jealous for you because he's passionate for you. Right? And so when he's like, I don't want you hanging out with these people, I don't want this happening, it's because he wants you to himself. In the book Hosea, God calls the prophet Hosea to go and marry a prostitute, right? Which nowadays be like, oh my gosh, God would never call a prophet of the Lord to go and marry a prostitute. But it happened. And God told him, she has all of these lovers. I want you to take her into the wilderness, just you and her, and speak words of love over her and pour love into her, because God was trying to show the children of Israel, this is what I want to do for you and with you. I want to draw you to myself where I can pour love into you and be passionate about you. And just he just want to eat us up. He just wants his ooey gooey goodness with us. And it's hard for Christians to see that, because when we read the scripture, I was reading the scripture today and God was like, can you read that as if I was smiling? If I was smiling when I said that to you, it's not that serious. I'm happy. I'm not in a bad mood. I want you to enjoy me and I want to enjoy you. When John 10:10 says, and Jesus says, I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly, that is a joyful life. I think it's in Ephesians 4, or is it Timothy 4, where 1 Timothy 4, where the Lord is like, I have given you all these things that you may enjoy them. Like, and I'll always say this, he put us, when we were created, Adam and Eve, into a garden of pleasure. And then he walked with us in the cool of the garden in this like beautiful intimacy. That is what God wants. And sexuality is only a mirror of the passion God wants to have with us in our spiritual relationship with him. So I hope that makes sense. That's a long answer to a short question, but thank you so much, Shaq, for asking that. I really appreciate that. For those of my new viewers who don't fully understand why we're having this conversation, that's why we're having this conversation. And then I am passionate about young women, teenagers, because I didn't have that support growing up. And I had to teach myself about sexuality, and it caused a bunch of problems in my life, in my identity, in my self-concept of who I was. Like, I did a lot of things to please other people, and I would show up to please them and never really understood my privilege or my right or my birthright to have pleasure, and was always about other people. Like, as a woman, I was showing up to be pleasing. Thank you, Shaq. You're welcome. I was always showing up to be pleasing to other people and not understanding, even in my sexual activity, it was all about the other person. I was putting on a show, and I talk all about that in the book. So single women, and if you're not married, you're single. Single women, if you are resonating with what I'm telling you right now, please pick up the book and get healed. Like, walk through the process with me so you can get to a place of healing and into a place of not just healing. We can't stop at healing. We have to move on into celebration, okay? So moving on, in grade 8, they're going to start talking about contraception. So IUDs, condoms, birth control pills. I'm hoping soon, I know they've tested this out, that they will have pills, birth control pills for men, because the conversation around abortion is really blaming toward women, but a woman doesn't get pregnant by herself, right? Somebody planted a seed, so we need to be having a full, balanced conversation, not just like the woman, it's the woman's fault. Like, we need to start teaching men ahead of time. Like, if you come in a woman and she gets pregnant, that's not like your responsibility doesn't start when she actually has the baby. We have to start talking to young men and older men as well, because in some societies this is not understood. If you are not able to control your ejaculation and someone gets pregnant, it's not her fault. Like, it's not her body's fault, right, that she got pregnant. You have to take responsibility for that, okay? So they're going to start talking about, and I hope they bring that in there, and they start telling young men, like, this is like, you get women pregnant. Like, it's not her fault because she wasn't on the pill. It's not her fault because she didn't take these precautions. We are both equally responsible for the results that happen after or during us having sex, okay? And then they're going to start also talking about gender fluidity, where I can express complete femininity and I can express complete masculinity, and there's somewhere in the middle. People could fall anywhere in between that. Whatever your beliefs are around that, I'm not here tonight to fix it for you or have the conversation. Unless you want to, you can join me live and we can talk about it. But gender fluidity is going to start being taught in 8th grade, so like 13, 14, 15, I believe. And then in grade 9, which is like shocking to me, because what? Are you like 15 when you're in 9th grade? Maybe 14. In grade 9 is when they're going to start talking about pleasure and pornography. Like, that's way too late. Am I wrong about that? Am I wrong that that's way too late to start talking about pleasure? Like, I definitely don't agree with that. Obviously, right? Because I just talked to you guys about self-pleasure and all of those different things. And pornography isn't just watching a video. I told you guys yesterday that I would read those like trashy novels where my dad was like, oh, she's such a good reader, she's so good. But I was reading this like trashy crap. Well, I wouldn't say it's crap, but I was reading these novels that were very pornographic. I didn't have to like turn on my phone and watch porn. I was reading pornographic material, right? And so it could be written, it could be visual on on the video, or it can be pictures that you're looking at. All of that Playboy, right? If you're having a hard time understanding what pictorial pornography looks like, Playboy, right? Those kinds of things where I'm looking at a woman and I'm picturing in my mind, or a man, picturing in my mind what I want to do with it, and I'm masturbating and self-pleasing to that image, right? And so all of those things are pornographic. So in 9th grade is when they were planning on having that conversation, which I totally believe that is way too late. It is way too late, because kids are like spending the night at their friend's house, and maybe their parent or whoever maybe hasn't locked the internet down, or maybe dad or mom has pornographic magazines. Honestly though, Victoria's Secret to me is very pornographic. And I feel so strongly about that I stopped shopping at Victoria's Secret. In the mall, you walk by and a woman's behind is in a thong and is completely out, and you have all ages walking by that stuff. I'm the kind of person that if the company doesn't resonate with what my values are, which is my right to do, I won't shop with you. Like I've been stopped shopping at H&M, and we all know what happened with them, right? Putting a young black child in the shirt that says they're a monkey. I am that person that will stop shopping with you. I don't need anybody to tell me to stop shopping with you. I make my own decision when it comes to that, because in our day and age, in our generation, we strongly believe in your identity as a company. And so if your story as a company is this, I'm not going to spend my hard-earned money to promote what is against or opposite to what my beliefs are. I'm just not going to do it. Right. And so that was the end of the conversation. I know we got into porn and started talking about that, and I think I finished it at the end of the show. So if you have any questions for me, I know it's Friday night, and I know Shaq is going to have a comment about this later, but it's Friday night, and I know you guys are going out and want to go party and all those good things, but I want you to know I'm here every weeknight at 10 o'clock for about an hour. I've been having issues with my internet shutting down at like 40 minutes into the show, so I'm thinking about moving it up an hour, because I don't have any issues like the 9 o'clock hour. I don't know what's going on with that. I'm gonna call my internet company and deal with that, but I don't want the show to end, because it's like right around the time, and I can see it now, where my internet's getting like a little bit like a little spotty, like it starts to happen. I don't want a disruption. I want us to have a full, complete conversation. So for all of you who join me tonight, please make sure you like me, please make sure you comment, and please make sure you share this on your page. Hey VIP girl, I'm ending the program right now. So we've had the conversation. Please make sure you watch the replay. And if you're a single woman, which means you're not married, there is no ring on your finger. All the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies, put your hands up, okay? If you are a single woman, please go ahead and pick up this book. If you are dealing with issues or have questions around your sexuality, it is called Good Sex. You can find it on Amazon. If you just type my first name in and put in Good Sex, you'll find it really easily, because nobody has my name, okay? Well, except my family. I got a cousin and my aunt, right? But nobody has a name that's written in this book. So if you put my name in, you'll be able to find me very easily. Also, for moms who have teenage girls, if anything that I've talked about tonight is really making you think like I really need to get help with that, send me a private message or hit the link that is in the description of this video and set up a free call with me. It's 50 minutes where I'm going to take you through learning and building a plan and a roadmap for the next steps for you to walk your daughter through these teenage years, to make sure that she doesn't get herself in the place of maybe where she does get pregnant or ends up with a sexually transmitted disease or infection, or even worse than that, ends up with a damaged sense of who she is, and then it's her whole life, right? Trying to figure out who she is and trying to reconcile that. Let's reconcile that. Let's build children who don't need to be healed from their teenage years. And I want to partner with you in that, okay? It's okay, girl. Make sure you watch the replay. I know everybody's like trying to get out and have a good time tonight, so I'm not going to hold you guys up too late. It is Friday night, and I might start next week starting at 9 o'clock. instead of 10, okay? So thank you all so much, beautiful people, for watching this. Mwah, mwah, mwah. I love you, I love you, I love you. We're gonna continue next week with the Good Sex Talk Show with Coach Emma, who is here to close the gap between your sexuality and your spirituality. I love you. Bye.